Some wise words from the beast himself. So I found a really cool quote from Aleister Crowley a couple of days ago, and it's been mulling around in my mind. So let's go over it and let's talk about what it means. These rituals need not be slavishly imitated. On the contrary, the student should do nothing the object of which he does not understand. Also, if he have any capacity whatever, he will find his own crude rituals more effective than the highly polished ones of other people. So, on the one hand, he's talking about the idea that if we work magic that is effectively like someone else's rituals, and really we haven't had any hands in creating it, that we really shouldn't be doing those things. And I mean, honestly, tons of magic books are geared towards these pre-described, pre-written rituals of say this and have this on your altar and do it this time of day. And if you've watched my channel to any capacity, I mean, you've probably heard me talk about how personalizing your magic is much more effective than doing something that is pre-written and pre-described. And, Crowley in this quote really goes along with it. By the way, don't argue with me about the way that I pronounce his last name. I can't remember if it's Crowley or Crowley, but either way, it just makes it easier if I just go with the way that's easiest for me. So don't mince words over pronunciation or whatever. But yeah, so effectively, what he's talking about here is the magic that we do should be highly personalized, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Think of it this way: if you ever did a presentation with like PowerPoint or something in school, and you could have two different kinds of presentations. One is, which happened with most people and does a lot today, which is annoying, is you have a bunch of words on a PowerPoint, and the person just stands up there and reads them off. You know, these rituals need not be slavishly imitated. On the contrary, the student should do nothing. Da da da. It sounds very robotic. It sounds very, just bland. And then you have another kind of presentation where they understand that stuff like PowerPoint is meant for just like bullets, right? So if I was to do a presentation or something, I wouldn't have full sentences that I absolutely read out loud. I have little starters, and I start with the three or four word starter, and then I talk about it. You know, so effectively, you can have it where it's just one, two, three, A, B, C, or you have one and then add stuff, and then two and then add stuff, and then three and then add stuff. So which one is going to be more worth like more engaging to watch? Someone who just reads rote off a screen, or someone who has the bullet points and then expands on it? Obviously, the latter. The same kind of thing can be said about magic. When you create a ritual where you have your statement of intent and that you wrote it. Maybe it rhymes, maybe it doesn't. I personally suck at the whole rhyming aspect, so I don't really work with that kind of thing. I'm not a Dr. Seuss or anything like that. But you decided what objects and things that go on the altar, you decide what time of day it is, the better and more effective it's going to be. Now, I mean, you can have the perfect time of day and the perfect day of the week and the perfect words and stuff in a pre-described ritual, but the more that you just do stuff right out of the page of a book, then the less personalized it is and the less powerful it's going to be. If you spend your time to create the script and figuring out exactly when to perform it and how to say different things and when to do what, that's putting more work into your magic. That's putting more energy into it, and arguably the more energy that you put into it, the bigger payoff you're going to get. So basically what I'm trying to talk about here in a nutshell is the more effort that you put into a ritual or spell, then the more of a result you're going to get. I mean, of course, this also has stuff to do with like focus and intent and your follow through with acting in accord and things like that. But the more drawn out and the more that you can get into the psychodrama of the situation, where I've said this a bunch of times in like my classes that I have and in my videos here, when you are just reading off of a script or stuff that someone else made, you're all in the logical mind, like you're going through, what's step one, what's step two, what's step three, what's step four, and then you're like, okay, cool, I'm done, yeah, I'm gonna get my result. It doesn't exactly work like that. But the more that you know your material because you created it yourself, then the more you flow from step one to two to three to four to five or whatever. Now, this can be done with pre-described rituals if you practice them enough to know where you know what you're saying. You feel what you're saying. Now, you can turn a pre-described ritual, such as something from like the Simon Necronomicon or whatever, and really feel with it and flow with it, which is why um here's this is where I was going with this. Pre-described rituals, such as those in the Simon Necronomicon and whatnot, they can be effective as long as they are familiar to you. Because the more that you work with something and you know exactly what you're doing, rather than having to refer to a one, two, three, four, five, six step, then the less in the logical mind that you are and the more that you can flow with it. Now, arguably, it's easier to get into more of the flow with something if it's something you created yourself rather than reading it off of a page that someone else wrote, because arguably it would take more repetitions and things like that, doing it over and over and over before you get out of that logical what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, and more into the knowing exactly what you're doing because you created it yourself. So Crowley says that you shouldn't do rituals that are made by other people, and that par- just taking part of it, he will find his own crude rituals more effective than the highly polished ones of other people. That's the big takeaway with this, is that the magic that you create yourself is going to be more effective simply because you made it. Yeah, there you go. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you find it more effective to do stuff that comes out of a book, or do you take pride in going through the whole process of creating your own rituals and figuring out what time and what day and exactly what goes on the altar? Working magic in just doing things highly personalized and creating your own stuff gives you so much freedom, and I find it to be much more effective than just looking at the different books and saying, "Oh, I have this need. I'll go to this section. I'll just do this one thing." That's what I don't like about a lot of books and why I haven't written one of those yet is I don't like the pre-described spell stuff. If you've ever checked out Magical Theater, my first book, or Magical Mechanics, my second, I talk so much about ritual and the psychodrama and what has to happen in a ritual in terms of the structure, that that's the more important part in my practice and to me is setting up your own structure. Even in my classes, I don't exactly give you pre-described um, spells for getting stuff done. I give you the methods of it. So cord cutting, candles, sigils, things like that. Those are the methods. But I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it with what sigils and what words. With the Simon Necronomicon, it's a bit different because it's traditional, and sure, there are pre-described rituals, but the energy that you bring to it and the intent that you bring to it is where you get into the more creative side of things. And even though uh, the quote that we're talking about here mentions that it's much more effective to have your own kinds of rituals, given that the Necronomicon stuff is so you know structured, it's also the thing that makes it the most powerful, I think, is not only the states that it brings you into, but also the amount of traditional tradition and people that have done it before you. So you're tapping into that giant um, universal reservoir of energy of everyone that has ever worked the book before you worked it. So there is a time and place for pre-described rituals, but for the most part, I would highly suggest creating your own magic from scratch. Yeah. All right, full circle. What do you think? Good hunting. Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description. You can also find me on Facebook at Magickology YT. You can email me at priestofthenecro@gmail.com, and you can even check out my Instagram, which is Magickology. And good hunting.